What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a young and bright assistant coach, an innovator in the game of basketball, a future head coach in this business, and a native of Damascus, Maryland, Nima Omidvar. All right? Nima, so he has a tremendous resume here, and I like to brag on him because I can remember him when he first started in this business. He actually graduated from the University of Maryland in 2008. But before he even graduated, he had already began coaching. He was coaching at the Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School for 2 years, 04 to 06, where he did a tremendous job there at the Jewish Day School. And then from there, he ends up going to St. John's College. So he was in the WCAC, one of the best or the best basketball conference in the country as an assistant coach with the Stefano. And then from there, he goes to Paul VI, another team that's in the WCAC, worked for Glenn Farello for 2 years as an assistant coach there. And all along while he's doing that for 3 years, had a chance to work with DC Team Takeover, as well as working with Triple Threat. And that was kind of Triple Threat before it became DC Team Takeover. And I'll even throw in some I-270 Warriors for all the people who can remember that program. He also founded a couple of AAU events, in the area, and and actually ran or was in charge of a few of them in the area. So did an outstanding job of making sure he was building up contacts and networks along the way. Then he got into college basketball, where he started as a graduate assistant for Bobby Lutz down at University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Spent a season down there before moving over to Bowie State with Darrell Brooks, 4 years an assistant coach, and then heading to the ACC at NC State as the video coordinator with Mark Gottfried, where he did a tremendous job there. Because I know a lot of the times his title, he has a title, but he does a lot of things behind the scenes that no one knows what he's doing. And then he goes to Maryland, so he gets a chance to come back home. He's at his alma mater, spent 4 years there with Turgeon as the director of basketball ops. And like I said, Nima also was still doing a lot of things there. Even was going on the road recruiting some when they had assistants that were out for, time being out, whether it was for pregnancy or, wife pregnant or things of that nature. So he's always done a good job of recruiting from that standpoint. And then he moves to South Alabama for a year, with a chance to work for Coach Riley, assistant coaching job. And then now he comes back home, and he's at George Washington University, where he's working for Jamie and Christian. Just finished up year one. Those guys are going to build a program back to where it was in the early 2000s. And I just want to say welcome to the show to a good friend of mine, Nima.
Lamar, thanks for having me, man. Is it time for me to get unmasked?
You can get unmasked, man. You inside, social distancing. You all right on this, man.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Look, Nima, you know what? We might as well get right to it, man. And, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I know you've done a tremendous job with some things, even during this pandemic. I followed it, especially the 360 mentoring. I know you had a big part of playing in that. I noticed, you always going to give credit to the whole staff, but I know a lot of times people don't notice that behind the scenes. But we're going to get right into the first question. But I did want to let you know that people do notice a lot of things, and so I know you played a big part in that, and the guys at GW can do a tremendous job. But look, man, like, you've been around the game for a long time. There's no handbook to being a college coach. Tell me about your first day, the first week, first month, after things are done with human resources or orientation, especially when no one gives you direction. You might think but now you thrown in the fire. Like, what was that like, man, your first day, first week, first month?
I remember vividly my first day at UNC Charlotte as a GA. we're doing workouts, and I'm just sitting on the scores table, just hanging out, thinking like, man, this is a low-key summer workout. And Rob Moxley, I love Rob Moxley to death, screams at me, man, I don't know what you think this is. Get your ass off that scoreboard. Get over here and get ready to work. And that taught me from moment one that you have to be on your toes at all times. You have to be ready to go at all times, specifically when we're inside those lines or we're within the office. It is not a time to lounge or joke. It is a time to work, because there's so many others that would be willing to do everything that we're doing. Nothing that we do as coaches. There's different levels, but there's nothing that I do that someone else can't do as well. And so, he taught me that lesson the very first day. And I'm very grateful that he did, because it really propelled me to have a serious mindset about this business.
Awesome, man. Shout out Rob Moxley. Terrific assistant coach. Now, we all talked about it, recruiting. All right. It's the lifeline of college athletics.
Yeah.
You got to get good players, got to get good people if you want to be successful. I know that's something you've always looked at. Talk about one of your best and worst recruiting stories since you've been in this business.
Best story, I will go to my Bowie State days. I recruited two young men, Najee White and Demetric Scott. This is my second year in college basketball. I'm really excited to be involved in a resurrection of a program that at that time we were nationally ranked. And there were two young men at Hagerstown Community College that, truth be told, I went and saw them on accident. It was more of like, hey, you know what? First day, I don't have really anybody to go see. I'm going to go see the furthest away JUCO in the state of Maryland, kind of check that off the box, and get up there and start talking with actually Chad Brashears, who's now a local high school head coach. And he's telling me both kids are from out of state. One's from Pennsylvania, one's from Virginia Beach. And it's like, well, at Bowie State, we can only afford to take in-state guys. Now I watch them work out and I'm like, well, damn, like I would have taken these guys at Charlotte. Like these guys are high level. And start the process that goes into a year-long process where it culminates with me coming to them on the very last day of the recruiting period in the spring. And at this point, they had been getting overtures from a lot of Division I schools, including high major Division I schools, Virginia Tech, Penn State. And so I decided to challenge these guys in a game of horse. Okay, a little different rules in Division II. So I said, let's play some horse. Now, I'm going to rewind back. As a GA, I worked with a guy named Matt Ryder, who every day in practice would shoot a behind-the-back half-court shot, and he with proficiency would make this shot. I would shoot it with him, and with proficiency would miss. Never, ever, ever would make this shot. So now I get to Bowie. I thought that was funny. Like, it was a cool thing to do. I would start every practice with a behind-the-back half-court shot. Never made it. When we get to playing horse, I'm suited and booted now, dress, slacks, shoes, and I'm knocking everything down. And their whole team is watching. I told them, I said, if I beat y'all on horse, y'all sign in today. Well, the last shot, lo and behold, was behind-the-back half-court swish right to the bottom of the net. I just walked off the court, went to their teammates, said, boys, y'all get some tickets behind the Bowie State's bench too. Don't worry. Y'all be there with us next year. And those young men committed, and that following year, they ended up winning the CIAA tournament championship. They were major pieces in doing that.
Wow. Yeah. And I say that, did you go play the lottery that day too? Because I mean,
I just won the lottery. I got two high major dudes that go Division II. That's the lottery right there, bro. And it was a lot of fun. I still stay in touch with those guys and joke about it, to this day. In terms of the worst, I'm not going to use names, but I'm gonna give you a scenario, and this is a lesson for all kids to learn, young coaches to learn out there. Player XYZ ends up being a McDonald's All-American and a draft pick, commits to our staff at school, ABC. I won't tell you what school I was at either, so you can't get back and look it up. And the young man tells us and the family, man, I want to do the announcement on TV. Man, I'm like, yo, take that thing to Twitter. Just go ahead and tweet it right now. Take that thing. Come on, man. We can take you on TV later. He said, nah, I want to do it on TV. Well, I knew when he got back to his school, it was going to be some individuals that might try and change his mind. And I'll be damned if they didn't change his mind in a big way. Boy, I tell you what, Lamar, you asked this question. All of a sudden, I got memories rushing back, good and bad. I got the chills. I don't know. I could go on all day with this one. This is sometimes it's good to go down memory lane. Sometimes it ain't.
Well, look, I'm sorry that you missed out on that kid, obviously, because like you said, like the one thing about it is you said take it to Twitter. Like, you know, if it's there, it's gonna be done, and then everybody's hands get in the pot.
Yeah, it gets real hectic. I used that lesson later on when I was at South Alabama. Young man comes to visit us who's now at South Alabama, KK Curry. And the whole week leading up to it, you know, all of us assistants were texting him, and I'm telling him about, hey, I'm going to give you the campus tour. And I said, listen, we're not letting you leave off this campus without a commitment. And I sent him a video. We had this video of the campus swimming pool, which was hot down there at South Alabama, real nice. I said, you commit, I'm jumping in the pool. With all my clothes on, I'll jump in the pool. He's, no, you won't. No, you won't. I said, yeah, well, watch. So we get to that point. I said, man, you ready to do this or what? He said, yeah, I think I'm ready to do it. I said, pull your phone out, take it to Twitter. Tweet a little jag emoji. Man, he tweeted that emoji. I ran right to the pool, jumped in. And I said, man, we solidify this thing. And he had a game-winning putback and one on a missed free throw at the end of the game this year for South Alabama. I remember watching it on my phone and be like, man, that's it. I love it. So I'm shout out to KK Curry and his family for trusting us at South Alabama and allowing me to jump in the pool that day.
Awesome, man. I know you would have stories for days, so those are pretty good ones. Now we know this too. Like, this business is, and you work. That's what you've always done. I remember the days we had Eastern Invitational Basketball Camp, which is now the hoop group, and so you've always been a working guy. But this business, that's what it is. Like, there is no, like, people ask me, when is your downtime? When is your off season? There is no off season. There's no downtime. So, like, what did you have to give up or sacrifice achieving your current level of success?
Well, the answer is kind of unfortunate. Early on, I gave up a little bit of family. I also gave up a lot of just personal time. I didn't have a vacation until last year, which was a very fortuitous vacation. It was with my current girlfriend, so I'm very glad I took that vacation. But there was never, ever a weekend off. It was never, and by the way, the only reason I was able to do that vacation was because my boss mandated that we all take vacation. It was mandatory. There's been a lot of missed birthdays and missed celebrations that, it's part of it, but you have a responsibility to the 15 or so players in your program, the athletic trainers, the strength and conditioning coach, the other assistants to bring it every single day. And then the countless number of constituents at your university that are counting on our program to be successful. Every program I've had a chance to join was on a low end that we had to bring on an upward tick. It was never a championship team that I was just fortunate to like join in on. So there's work to be done, and you've got to be bought into doing what it takes to be successful.
So true, man. So true. Good stuff. And then we know this too, scouting reports. You can always tell who scout it is. Like, some guys, now people are changing a little bit, but when you're on that sideline, the guy who's jumping up and down, yelling, screaming, he's the most active. A lot of times, it's his scout. Because one, he's invested so much time into it. He's watching 7-8 games. It's just not you're going to watch 2 games and that's it. Like, you want to get the calls, the actions. You try to get as much as you can to get your team prepared to be successful. And then it's always that guy that's been struggling shooting 2 for his last 25. He somehow comes in and makes 3-4 threes, and coach is looking at you saying, I thought he couldn't shoot. And coach, I didn't say that. I said he's struggling shooting. So talk about one of your best and worst scouting reports.
Well, in terms of best, I recall at Bowie State, we played IUP, who was number 2 in the country. They played an exhibition game against Pittsburgh. We played them second or third game of the year. And so in Division II, you're allowed to live scout. So I made it a point to make sure I did a live scout on every single one of my opponents. Now, I'm 2 years removed from high school basketball, and we live scouted everything in the WCAC. I still, to this day, have got a lot of the WCAC calls memorized. And that's something that I take pride in. I've got a memory bank full of your play calls. Whatever team, if I really committed to it, that's the team that I can memorize your calls. So we play against IUP, and I'm down on the baseline. I actually got a media pass because as a Division II coach, I'm getting paid really nothing. So I also had a contract with ESPN. And so I utilized that to sit right on the baseline, right next to their bench, and get a really good vantage point of all their plays. They had a sideline play that Joe Lombardi would run called Celtic. And what it was a box set and then a screen and then a rescreen flare. And they would run that and get an open 3-point look. We're playing against them. We're down 1, and they call Celtic with about 16 seconds left. This is my 3rd game on Coach Brooks's bench, and I call timeout. I'm screaming, timeout, timeout. Now, in my defense, I'm telling Coach Brooks, call timeout, but I may or may not have done this. Well, the referees awarded the timeout, and Coach Brooks looks at me like, what in the hell are you doing? I said, Coach, I got this. I know what they're running. We had a young man named Eric Van, unbelievable athlete from Gwen Park High School.
Park, yep.
Eric, Eric, I love Eric to death. Eric couldn't remember any plays, but he remembered this one. Eric, this is what they're going to do. Just steal that thing, man. Just sit on it like a DB and go steal it. And he did. Stole it, took it the other end, reverse dunk. We win the game. I was wearing my cream white suit, which was a big deal at Bowie State. And so that was that moment. Now, conversely, one of the worst, we're playing against North Carolina Central when I was at NC State. And, there was some questionable calls throughout the game. TJ Warren only ever fouled out when one certain official refereed his games. The internet world can go out there and figure that out. But, our team did not respect NC Central like they should have. NC Central had a point guard by the name of Pooby Chapman, who I thought was great, used to play in my tournaments. So I seen him come up, and he absolutely torched us. And we just could never kind of get over the hump. I'm having a vision of also Wake Forest with Bizdelic. We lost to them. I took a lot of pride in those games while I was at NC State, the ones that were my responsibility. And Bobby Lutz delivered every scouting report to the team. He was our defensive coordinator. And myself and other members of the staff would coach the coaches and kind of coach him up and give him the Cliff Notes version to be ready for that game. And it's a very helpless feeling when a play is executed that you just know, man, we could have did better. And so you remember those feelings, you internalize them, and you make sure that never happens again moving forward in the future.
That's a great nugget. So young guys, listen to that, see what he's saying. Like, you might make sure you know everything you're doing, because that happens in this business. Like you said, like you were passing it on, or you were involved in it, and you never want to be the guy. Like, you feel bad when you lose, especially when it's just scout, because everybody's passionate, they want to win, and it seems like it's always competition. So yeah. I can understand you with that. What's the biggest challenge, man, you've experienced since you've been a college coach? I'm naturally a confident individual.
and this is just being really, really transparent and honest since you asked it, Lamar. I'm a confident individual, but you know, I wasn't a great player. I wasn't coming from any sort of quote unquote coaching tree or background, and you know, just finding ways to reassure yourself when you're in solitude in your apartment or late at night when you're wondering, man, what if, especially in those games like that, that, you know, to trust your process and trust what helped get you to where you are. The more we climb the mountain, the further it is we can fall, and you start taking less and less chances. You start taking less bold moves, if you will, whether it be with your scouts, your recruiting, however it may be. And so, you know, just trusting that, you know, what it takes to get to the top is what it takes. And it takes hard work, effort, genuine relationships, integrity, you know, just being honest, and you know, all this while being creative and having a driven approach and relentless approach to being successful. So those are the biggest challenges. I'm sure other young coaches are going through it, especially right now with universities doing furloughs and budget cuts. Man, it's hard to get in. Just continue to trust your process, climb the mountain, and that's what's going to overcome over time.
Great nugget right there, man. Great nugget. Now, did you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions in our business. You know, you go sit on the sidelines and, man, that guy over there does this, and that. That guy over here does that, and this. You know, a lot of, I've heard it first person and I've heard it second person, that some don't necessarily like my verbose approach on social media, for example. I took on a 10-day shoe challenge when I was filling in for Coach Turgeon when he was on Team USA at the University of Maryland. And I wore 10 different shoes, 10 different days. And guys were, you know, snickering, cracking jokes. Hey, man, that's fine and dandy. But let me tell you something. The young man that I identified during that time, Eric Ayala, who ended up coming and committing to the University of Maryland, is now a starter there. He was enamored and interested in that social media game, if you will. Hey, what's he going to wear tomorrow? Am I going to see him wear it tomorrow? Because if you see it in real life, that means I was at your court. Now you remember it. And I want you to remember that we're here and we're committed to you. There's this fellow right here, my man, Curious G Dub. I've gotten a handful of messages. I've had him on every single Zoom call we've done this COVID year. And, you know, a lot of people joking about it. But again, there's young men out there that get pictures of Curious G Dub all over the Washington, D.C. area. And when they see it, it means a different thing to them than what may be meaning in our basketball community. So, yeah, there's a lot of that, misconceptions and all that. I do not let that bother me. I do not let that faze me. If anything, that fuels me. I know my pathway to where I want to go is to go down the path less traveled, like the poet Robert Frost once said. And so I don't want to go down your pathway and do it the way all the other guys did. I'm going to go through the thick bushes and the tall trees where the jungle's really, you know, scary. That's the way I'm going to have to go if I'm going to come out first place in the race.
Awesome right there, man. And that's why one of the things I said earlier is you're an innovator. And I respect you for that because, you know, like a lot of guys, you take chances and you know what? And the results speak for itself. So that's why I appreciate what you do. And don't let anybody discourage you from that. Keep doing that because that's who you are.
Let me add this, Lamar. Okay. All the successful sideshows, like my man Curious G Dub right here, people will remember them. The unsuccessful ones, they get forgotten real quick, especially in our era of social media and the microwave generation that we have. So if something flops, move on. It's okay. It's fine. The new cycle will move on, and the world will continue to spin. So that should give a little bit of confidence to give it your best shot. Try what's on your mind, and obviously work in conjunction with your head coach. I've had a million ideas rejected. That's okay. That's good. It allows you to go workshop those ideas. Because let me tell you, not all of those ideas would have been good. The idea for this doll did not necessarily come from me. It was me and our staff talking about what would be a good way to engage our fan base while I went to Europe for 18 days to recruit. And one of our assistants, Graham Bowsley, had the idea of you should walk around with a George Washington doll. So for one, not every good idea is mine. So that one was his, and he helped me workshop it by just communicating and working together as a unit.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Like I said, I applaud all that you're doing. We know this too, Nima. This business is you're a teacher, you're an educator. That's what basketball is. It's like being in a classroom. But what do you try to do, or what do you try to teach your players besides basketball? Because I know you big on the, life lessons things as well. So what do you try to teach?
That's a great question, Lars. So right now, it's obviously a difficult time getting kids on campus, and we're not yet back on campus. We're in the end of July. Every year, there is a cycle of incoming freshmen that don't know what they don't know. So right now, we as a program we have what we call our Leadership Academy, where we want to empower every young man in our program to become a leader. We don't do team captains because that limits the leadership roles to just one or two guys. We want everyone to be in a leadership role because ultimately, if you come to the world's most powerful university, you could be a CEO, you could be a prominent member in society, and you have to know how to lead. But the freshmen don't know what they don't know. And so allowing and giving them a platform to speak to others and speak to us within our program and in other programs to ask even the simplest questions that's on their mind. Because even those simple, small questions create some levels of anxiety for these young men. And if we can eliminate that, then we can allow them to grow faster as leaders, as basketball players, and as men. The other thing is I'm very passionate in working with various nonprofits, charities, and community service so that we give back to the community. I'm very fortunate to be a college basketball coach. Our players, although they have earned the right to be there, they are also very fortunate because there's so many that maybe could have earned the right to be there had their circumstances been different. And if we can teach them the value of giving back, they're going to just be that much more grateful, and having that sense of gratitude is going to allow you to grow more as an individual and as a leader in society. So that's something that I love to teach about. And then, just lastly, small life lessons. When you're walking on campus, take your hood off, take the ear plugs out your ear. I'm guilty sometimes. I'll walk around with my phone in my hand and be texting. And I tell the players, hold me accountable too. I'm not perfect, but we need to be engaged with our campus and our community, the academic ecosystem that's around us, because not only are they going to be the fans at our games, but they're also going to be business leaders and future leaders of the world. And we want to, be as engaged and present with them as possible, so that we can all achieve what college is meant to achieve, which is, building your future. So these are little nuggets that when you say, well, taking my hood off, how does that really affect down the line? Well, here, let me explain it to you. But now let me just execute this plan, and let's watch and do a little study. Let's see how it really matters if you, the basketball player on campus, the big man on campus, if you will, walks by a student and just says hello. I went to University of Maryland. I was a coach at the time in high school ball, but I was a fan as well. And you know, having Grievous Vasquez and Dave Neal and guys like that, James Gist, come by and just walk by you on campus and say, "What's up?" That meant the world to me as a student and as a fan. Okay. I had my student and fan hat on at those times. And so I want to be able to transfer that, you know, experience to them and say, you know, you have no idea how much they'll remember that. I struck up a conversation with Grievous Vasquez saying, "Hey, I'm a high school coach. I watched your first ever game in America at Montrose Christian in summer league against Richard Montgomery. You had the little guard guarding you." He was like, "I can't believe you remember that." I was like, "Yeah, I was there. I watched it." And then we had a multiple year relationship that continues to this day. But he gave that type of experience to everyone on campus. That's why he's so beloved at the University of Maryland. And so if I can help teach each of our young men to just give a little bit of love back to their campus and their community, it's going to do wonders for them down the road. Grievous can be the president of Venezuela if he wants to. And I like to think certain players that I've coached, I'll use another guy at Maryland, for example, Andy Terrell, who we had a YouTube sensation video series. If he wants to be the governor of Indiana one day, I think he's got it in him to do that. And you build those habits as a student in college.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Like, Nima, what's your best and worst memories in coaching?
One of the best, I've got a lot of bests rushing in my head. Worst, I do a pretty good job of memory suppressing. My first team championship with the Jewish Day School in our first year, we played St. Anselm's earlier that year, lost. St. Anselm's had won the championship 4 years in a row. We had some snow days preceding the championship game. My guys all showed up to an outdoor court that we shoveled to do a walkthrough to attack their 1-3-1, and we beat them by 21 points because we had a plan of attack. If it wasn't for the snow day, I would not have been able to see Lorenzo Romar go up against Arizona and his 1-3-1 attack at that time. We stole it, called it Washington. It was great. We win the game, getting doused with water after the game, going to the Sweet 16 at NC State. We were the last team into the NCAA tournament. That moment of the name being announced, which I was walking out of the room because I was furious, like, man, we didn't make it. I can't believe we didn't make it, especially after we launched this major social media campaign to try and get us in off the bubble. And we did that. And I'm like, I can't believe it didn't work. I thought it would have worked. And boom, we're the last team in. And then it just propelled us all the way to the Sweet 16 and a 3-point loss, unfortunately, to Kansas. But we were right there as the very last team in. Those were some of the best memories. Watching every single young man that I've ever coached walk across the stage and shake the commissioner's hand. That's always fun. Normally coincides with running a basketball camp because it's always the third Thursday of June. And that's always doing camp that next year. But I did have a chance to get off to New York when TJ Warren was drafted. That was really cool. And then the worst is, it happens every year to every team. But when you just don't fulfill your greatness, when you're not at your best, when your best is required, and you just just don't get it done, that's a really, really bad feeling, especially if you get one on the road, and then God forbid you have travel issues on the way back, which always seems to happen that way. So that's kind of a hodgepodge of my bests and worsts. I fight hard to stay away from the worst, and I yearn for those bests.
Awesome, man. What year was that? You got in NC State. You got into the tournament. What was that?
I believe that was 2011, 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And what we did was we started a hashtag NC State Bracket Facts. Our AD, Debbie Yao, taught me, because I didn't know at the time, that the selection committee is quarantined from outside communication when they go into the committee room in Indianapolis. They're in a hotel room or something similar to that, and they have no cell phones. They have no access to email. Prior to, we were sending emails. That was something I thought. I was like, well, if we know who the committee is, they're human beings. Like, they can get emails from us in FedEx envelopes and like get information on why we should be in and what we've done to get us in. And so we did that. But at the end, we're like, well, this is bubble week. We need to get in. So we started a hashtag. We tagged every announcer from every game that was doing any stuff. And of course, if you're on the bubble, there's going to be a segment where they talk about bubble teams. And I'll be darned if they didn't verbatim repeat those tweets. I mean, word for word. And I mean, we got in, and I've since talked to some of those reporters and broadcasters, and they've said, man, that was a really good idea. We were happy to share that information. They checked it on their own end, made sure that it was accurate. And you're watching those games. If you're on the selection committee and you're hearing that information, you're going to obviously be exposed to the propaganda to get us into the dance.
That was awesome idea. Like, now, what's been the most stressful situation you faced?
Well, for one, and any coach I've ever worked for will attest to this, I put a lot of self-induced stress. Can't be perfect, but love to be as close to perfect as possible. A lot of travel issues as it pertained to being a Dobo at the University of Maryland and getting us back and forth. The world of charter flights is not as smooth as everyone would think. And there was an incident coming back from the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis where it was us, West Virginia, and I think it was Providence, all sharing the same plane. And so it all depended on who lost when. Well, you know what? West Virginia ends up losing before us, so the plane goes to get them in Kansas City. And, the plane's supposed to come back and get us, but now it's got plane issues and mechanical issues. And then one thing after another, you get a delay and then another delay and another delay. And you're never really getting accurate information coming from your source. Boy, that's stressful. And anyone who's ever been a video coordinator can probably relate to this. But there's nothing more stressful than coach saying, all right, let's watch that scouting report. And you go to hit play and you've double checked 2 or 3 times and that thing just doesn't work. I get sweat bullets start churning in my head just thinking about it. Your heart starts racing and you better have a plan. So I always had a backup computer, backup hard drive, backup remote, backup everything. And then you had to quickly pivot and adjust. So those are some of the more stressful moments for certain.
I'm glad you're sharing that information because these young guys have no idea what it's like.
What's easy though, Lamar? When you get to the game and coach is like, hey, what's so-and-so shoot from the line? Like, I can give you that all day. That's easy. So when you want to be a college coach, there's a pathway to where we all want to be at the destination, a head coach. You can't skip steps because if you do skip steps, you're going to really forget. You're going to miss out on a lot of education that's important. And luckily, I've been able to be a GA, D2 assistant, video coordinator, Dobo, Division I assistant at a mid-major academic institution, and just a regular Division I institution. So now I've gotten to see all of those nuances, and I wouldn't trade those experiences and those failures for anything. But you've got to have that moment where you're sweating bullets because the entire program is looking at you and saying, what are we going to do? Because let me tell you, if you're a head coach and they say, what play we running, the entire program is looking at you, and you've got to be prepared for that moment. And I think handling a travel issue is more pertinent to getting ready for that moment than maybe mastering a scouting report. Anybody can do that. That's not hard to do. But figuring out how to be the CEO of a program and managing that issue, that's the challenge.
Definitely is a challenge, man. So you've been around for a while. You may not name a name. You could, but what's the strangest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court?
Man, how long are we interviewing for? So I love my guys. I love all of them. and a lot of education along the way. I won't go into specifics. I will say, I did have a young man who we decided, you know what, we're going to run you for, whatever truancies you may have. Well, he would laugh and say, "This is good for me. I need this running." So I decided to come up with a punishment, and it would be to just sit in every single seat in a certain section in the arena at my call. So up, over, down, sit, up, over, down, sit. And so we did this as a form of punishment because, yes, if you want to be a pro, you're going to get some extra runs in anyway. So that's probably good for you. But what we can't have you do is being a butthead on campus. What we can't have you do is being late for class and really putting a damper on our program and how we're perceived on campus. And I found that to be a very effective treatment to delinquencies. Up, over, down, sit, up, over, down, and just do it at my so it's not cruel and unusual. It's a simple matter of that. And it's while they're doing it, I'll remind them, if you keep acting up, you'll end up being up there in the stands as opposed to down here with us. And that normally gets the message home right away. You like to think you eliminate a lot of those behavior issues on the front end in recruiting, but the standard is the standard, and you've got to make sure everybody lives up to the standards that's set by your head coach and your program.
Great stuff. Look, I'm gonna ask you a question just because usually I'll ask. This is something different. This will be the first time I kind of ask it, but it just seemed like everywhere you've gone or everywhere you've been or every place you've started, you almost consider somewhat like a program builder. Talk about that, like just from the beginning to now, like just talk about that.
Yeah. So you're right. Every program I've been at, it's been a fortunate uptick. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's because of me. It's because of what I've learned along the way, put at least one or two tools in my bag and bring it along to the next program and share it with them. And while adding a couple more tools from their bag. So at the Jewish Day School, we had never won a championship there. And that was my first ever coaching job. Well, I utilized some of the strategies that Coach Cook taught me within our program at Damascus High School. And in year one, we won. And, mainly in there was just a refusal to allow you to make mistakes and glaze over mistakes. We're going to address every mistake, and we're going to spend time correcting every single mistake. If that means we're not going to get to whatever else was planned, that's okay. But we're not going to allow a mistake to go on to the second or third day. At Paul VI, it was a big thing that we learned there was vision. Okay, Glenn Farrell had unbelievable vision and an idea. When we walked in that gym, I vividly remember him pointing to the empty banner. They had these banners that said boys championships, girls championships, and the boys basketball championship was blank. And he said, we're gonna hang a bunch of banners. Now, I grew up in the DC area all my life. I never heard of Paul VI anything. And think, wow, we're gonna do that, man. Let's just like get to 500 or something and go from there. And we did that. And then once we started to have success, how we properly market the success. So we beat O'Connell on a fantastic buzzer beater. Man, how do we put this on YouTube so we can show the world? That video clip is still sitting on YouTube. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I go watch it every so often. Kendall Marshall makes an unbelievable floater. You see Joe Wooten pump his fists, and then we come right down on our sideline break. Boom, boom, boom. Adrian Mills passes it up, layup, win the game. Crowd rushes the floor. You can't recapture those type of experiences and moments, subsequent after the fact. So make sure the camera's rolling, make sure the atmosphere is lit so that when we have something great happen, we can now share that with the future generation. And I've really kind of taken a liking to that approach. did a lot of that at NC State, and just really tried to really accentuate all those unbelievable experiences that we had. So in our first year, we go to the Sweet 16, and we have mobs. I'm talking for 5 miles from the exit off of the highway all the way back to the Dale Center. People waving at the bus is like something I've never seen before. I never thought I'd be in some sort of scenario. That's where I take it upon myself to get out a camera and film it, and opposed to me just cheering and celebrating, do my job so that we can have those same experiences again, and build upon it. At the University of Maryland, marketing again, and really kind of showing inward what we're doing and the amount of work that we were doing, which really kind of allowed us to share our message more and more. And then obviously now at the university, at George Washington University, we've got a different story to tell. We're doing our part in changing our culture and our program to be a successful program, but we're really targeting a different individual that maybe I've targeted in the past in my career. We're targeting HPIs, high-performing individuals that are going to be successful on and off the floor. And so what is it that's going to resonate with them and their families, and make sure that we highlight that? None of these are facts that we're creating. We're just highlighting. So every step of the way as we build our program, we're going to highlight our strengths, and we're not going to hide from our weaknesses. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to make sure that it's known what those weaknesses are, because we're building upon it. And so as we recruit a new family and a new young man into our program, we want them to understand we're targeting you to help us with this weakness. This is what the weakness is. We're not going to hide from it, but here's everything else that we have to offer and why you could be an absolute success here at our institution. So that's an important piece, is kind of doing all that. And then when you step on the floor, there's a consistent requirement to be at your best when your best is required, and just really work at it every single day. So long as we do all that, our programs are going to have success.
Awesome, man. And it's fun. I'm gonna say that this will tell your age a little bit, even though they hadn't won. Legendary coach was there. You might know now, probably didn't know then. It was early. Red Jenkins, who's Tommy Amica's high school coach.
Yes.
W.T. Woodson was at Paul VI.
Yes.
Along with Trevor Brown, who was his assistant.
Yes.
Who's the head coach at National Christian. And then Levi kind of came in after them. But no, those are the days. Like Red Jenkins, he was a legendary coach more for at W.T. Woodson than he was at Paul VI. But yeah, I just wanted to, I know you knew that after the fact. You probably was like, who was Paul VI? Because they hadn't won championships before those guys got there.
Yeah.
You're right. You're 100% right. What's the biggest accomplishment you have experienced since becoming a college coach?
I think, man, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of accomplishments. I had a string of 7 straight NCAA tournaments, and that was a real string of, and at 3 institutions. So, Bowie State, NC State, Maryland, and at every single one of those institutions we won and advanced in the NCAA tournament. And it's a real testament to our program, the culture that we had, and just the recipes to success. I would say that would be, the biggest.
It's huge. 7 straight. A lot of people don't do that. So that is huge. I definitely agree with you on that. This is going to kind of take you for a spin for a little bit. But I know you don't get stumped too much. So what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
My week this week?
Any week.
Oh, man, that I am stumped. Come on.
Wow,
now.
That's a first.
What movie you start thinking about? Man, Lamar, you got me on this one. Hell, I don't know how much I'm thinking of shows. You know, the most common show I'm watching right now, believe it or not, is Home and Garden TV. Love it or list it. I'm,
Wow.
I'm hooked on that show. I just love how they transform houses. You know,
Hey, but hey, that could be you.
that could be
Transform.
me. Because you know what? Some people love me. Some people want to list me and get rid of me. That's fine. That's the way it goes. I think that would be the. You know what? I think that would be it.
I like that. What's your favorite word or phrase?
Um, Mark Gottfried had some good ones. He had a good phrase. That ain't gonna beat you. Whenever we had some sort of travel issue or complication, he had this calming influence. Man, that ain't gonna beat you. So he would say that a lot. But he also, whenever we would do the scouting report. Now you ain't going over 5 minutes on the scout. 5 minutes max. You get to 5:03, he's cutting you off, and he'd always cut us off with the same line. Hey, they got to guard us too, pal. And I love that line because, you know, it's very, I believe in that. We could cover what the other team does a whole bunch, but they got to guard us too. We got pretty good players over here. We're going to do what we do. They got to adjust to us. We're not going to blink. We're going to make them blink. That's a Jamie and Christian line. So that's something that I think is one of my more favorite lines.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Larry Farmer, all-time winningest coach all-time winningest player in basketball and NCAA basketball history, 89-1, while we were doing class checks at NC State University. I tell him, Coach Farmer, you don't got to come do these class checks. Like I can do them. This is the former head coach at UCLA, the age of 33. And I still to this day hold him in very high regard. He said, you see the same people on your way up in this business that you see on your way down. And so you have to treat everybody with kindness and respect. I've seen this cycle occur several times. There's been certain coaches that when I was an AAU coach treated me with a lot of respect, that now that I'm in college, I hear what they say behind closed doors. We hear them. I'm not going to fight their negativity with negativity, but I'm going to treat everybody with kindness and respect because I know you get more bees with honey. So I'm going to be me. I'm going to be genuine, but I'm also going to, you know, do things the right way and treat everybody that I come in contact with the right way. There's somebody that's going to watch your show, Lamar, that is aspiring to be like you and I, a college coach, and a college coach for a long time. We've both been in it for over a decade, right? If I were to go back to my younger self and say, hey, dude, you're going to get in this thing. And not only are you going to get in it, you're going to go to 7 NCAA tournaments. You're going to have 14 NBA players. And you're going to be going into your 12th year in your own city as a college coach. Pretty damn good. And
Yep.
I never would have expected that. And so there's no way for me to know or expect for any individual out there that reaches out for advice what they're going to be capable of. You don't judge books by its cover. I'm very happy to say that I've got coaching contacts and friends that are women, coaching contacts and friends that are disabled. And those are some folks that are giving me just as good, if not better advice than anyone else in this business. So you never know where the resources and the good fortune will come from. You want to treat everybody with respect.
Awesome right there, man. Like, what does success mean to you, Nima?
Success to me means our players in May of their senior year get to walk across the stage and their family are there with us crying, and we all can laugh and joke and say, I told you he would be walking across that stage. Whenever graduation is being set up at any institution I'm at. Here at GW, it's one of the most majestic locations right in front of the Washington Monument. I make it a point to go by and take a picture of the construction of the stage, and it's such a metaphor for what's to come. You're going to walk across the stage and get a piece of paper that's going to anoint you as an expert in a certain field. But if you fast forward to 4, sometimes 5 or 6 years prior to, and the relationship that gets built and the opportunity to go to any institution and get an education paid for, have unbelievable experiences, be in the locker room with future brothers, future best men's in your wedding, and to have all that culminate with that moment at the end, which is that piece of paper being handed to you and shaking the president of your university's hand. There's nothing better than that. I love those moments. I yearn for those moments for our guys. That might not be their goal. That might not be what success looks like for them. But for me, for certain, there's a lot that goes into it, but that's the payoff. It's just as good, if not better, than any buzzer-beating shot, March Madness. You know, that's the moments that we all are in it for.
So true, so true. I know you're not because like you're not you don't proclaim, you don't self-promote. I mean, you're a social media guy, but you don't promote yourself. You program, you're a selfless guy, which I really respect. If you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, like which would you choose?
Creative. I appreciate being creative. I appreciate those that are also creative and comfortable in their creativity. Driven. I was going to say determined, but more driven, especially when a task is laid in front of me to accomplish. We're going to accomplish that task. And humble. And I say that because the more I learn, the more I know what I don't know. And I was not always humble, but I've been humbled in my career. I'm humbled to continue to be in my career, knowing that I'm very capable and qualified to do what I'm doing. And I'm very grateful to be doing what I'm doing. But I've got admirations and ambitions that are far beyond this stratosphere. And so for me to get to where those goals are, I have to remain humble to be able to get there.
Awesome. Listen, what person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
My grandfather was very instrumental. My grandfather and grandmother. We lived together. We all lived in the same home with my mom and dad, and they showed me a lot of affection and love. My grandmother, extremely competitive. We could play cards. We could play bad gaming. We could literally do anything. She'd still want to beat me, and I respect that about her. My grandfather was very, very educated, was very into education, but he always impressed upon me to remain and be happy. And that's something that in this business is not easy to do. And I actually have it tattooed on my arm as a reminder to always be happy. And so that's something that was really important and influential to me. In terms of an event, I've got a lot of different watershed moments that I think really kind of acquiesce to my career. I think every single moment for getting the job that I got at the institution that I was going to, and I always went kind of back and forth from the DMV to North Carolina, et cetera, would have been that drive to that institution and just having that moment to reflect backwards and say, wow, I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. Because there's so many that could potentially have the skill sets that I have. I just was fortunate to be put in the right spots to get it done. I would say those are some of the more pivotal times for me, because you don't ever really get a chance to stop and smell the roses, Lamar. You don't get a chance to relish in victory. You just got to keep moving forward. And those moments are pretty impactful. I did a 16-hour drive from Mobile, Alabama to DC in the middle of the night to come and be on time for my first day on duty at George Washington University. And, we all arrived at the exact same time, which was, I think, really fitting because we're such a good unit and such a good team. We're very connected. And, those 16 hours was, I had a lot of time to reflect on how fortunate I am, and I'm very grateful for that.
Awesome, man. It is powerful. I like to always end with this question. You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but knowing what you know now, like what would you tell your young self or younger self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
Well, I was fortunate to have the advice early to maintain all relationships, good and bad. And so I've done that. I will just echo that out there. That's important. There's so many people that maybe participated in my AAU events. You would know from your time being a director at the Hoop Group that you're going to come across this person again, and you just don't know how they can impact your life. I would just reiterate that point and really drag that home, that you got to really be keen to your relationships, because this is a relationship business, and treat everybody with as much respect as possible, because no doubt one day you can help them, they can help you, and this is a people business where we help each other.
So true, man. Well, thank you again, Nima, man, for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. So you'll be able to go back to being masked. Is there anything you want, before you even do that, is there anything that you want to say to the people before we go?
Well, I've seen the guests that you've had on the show. I've seen the faces, and there's no question. It kind of relates back to the last point that I had, that, we all are interconnected in this business, in this fraternity of coaching. And we've all gotten a lucky break somewhere along the way. So if you're that person that's starting at square one, don't be afraid to ask for the advice from someone, that maybe has done it longer than you. But when they give you the advice, it may not always be what you want to hear. You got to be willing to accept it and execute it. No one told me when I said I want to be a Division I assistant because I've got a great AAU program. No one allowed me to think that was going to happen. No one allowed me to let that dream wander in my head for right at that moment. They all said, yes, you can get there. You have what it takes to get there, but there are steps along the way that you've got to conquer and master to be able to get to that goal. And you should really embrace that journey. That's so important. So that would be what I would say.
Awesome, man. Like, great to leave us with that nugget, man, at the end. Yeah, you can go ahead and get masked if you want to. I know you're going, hey, we're in the DMV, so I know we definitely got to get masked. So thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time, and stay safe.